Hello and welcome to this video. In this lesson, you will learn all about the phrasal verb point out. We'll cover its meaning, how to pronounce it correctly, and 20 common phrases that use this expression. By the end of this video, you'll be able to use point out in your own conversations with confidence. So let's get started.
What does point out mean?
Point out is a phrase that means to highlight or draw attention to something. It can be used in various contexts, such as pointing out a mistake, pointing out a solution, or pointing out a specific feature. In daily life, we often use this phrase to draw someone's attention to something important, whether it is a problem that needs to be solved or an opportunity that should be seized. In professional settings, pointing out errors or issues can be critical to ensuring the success of a project or business. However, it is important to use the phrase point out in a respectful and constructive way, especially when pointing out mistakes or issues. It is important to provide solutions or suggestions and avoid blaming or criticizing others. A positive and constructive approach can help build trust and respect among colleagues and friends. In conclusion, point out is a versatile phrase that can be used in various contexts to draw attention to something important. When used constructively and positively, it can help solve problems and improve communication among people.
How to pronounce point out?
To pronounce point out, follow these simple and easy steps. Begin by saying the consonant sound P with your lips pressed together. Say the vowel sound OI as in boy. This sound is created by rounding your lips and then moving them into a tight circle. Follow with the sound of the consonant N, which is produced by touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Say the T sound by touching the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth just behind your teeth. Finish with thou sound, which is pronounced like though in low, but with a slightly longer W sound added to the end. When you put all the sounds together, it should sound like point out.
The point out expression can have multiple meanings?
Yes. Point out can have multiple meanings, depending on the context. For example, to indicate or draw attention to something, she pointed out the bird in the tree. To mention or bring up something for consideration, I'd like to point out that this proposal has some flaws. To direct or guide someone's attention, can you point out where the nearest restroom is? To identify or distinguish something, he pointed out the differences between the two products. To criticize or point out flaws in something, she pointed out the errors in his report. As you can see, the meaning of point out can vary depending on the situation in which it is used. It's important to consider the context to fully understand its intended meaning. I helped you with these explanations, right? Now it's time for you to return the favor by subscribing to the channel. But stick around, because I'm going to show you examples of 20 phrases in which you can use the expression point out. 1. Let me point out the mistake in your calculations. 2. Could you point out the nearest gas station on the map? 3. I just wanted to point out that it's already past midnight. 4. It's important to point out the potential risks before making a decision. 5. She always likes to point out the flaws in other people's work. 6. I'm going to point out the features of this new software. 7. Let me point out the elephant in the room. 8. Can you point out which one of these is the correct answer? 9. He's quick to point out any errors or inconsistencies. 10. We need to point out the benefits of our product to potential customers. 11. It's easy to point out the problems, but harder to come up with solutions. 12. Let me just quickly point out something before we move on. 13. She pointed out that the meeting was scheduled for next week, not this week. 14. He always tries to point out his own achievements in every conversation. 15. Can you point out where the nearest restroom is? 16. It's important to point out the advantages and disadvantages of each option. 17. Let me point out the similarities between these two paintings. 18. She didn't hesitate to point out his mistakes in front of everyone. 19. Could you point out the key takeaways from the presentation? 20. We should point out the potential consequences of this decision. If you're still with me and want to get better at English, write a sentence in the comments using point out. See you in the next video.